U.S. lost over $10 trillion in just 1 week as trade wars and tariff policies skyrocket prices, shattering public trust and hitting American and European consumers hard. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was sent out to cool things down. But instead of providing a clear explanation, she resorted to the usual tactic: deflection and blaming Elon Musk and Peter Navarro.
There's been some public sparring between Elon Musk and the president's trade advisor, Peter Navarro, on some of these tariffs. Musk actually referred to Navarro today as being, quote, dumber than a sack of bricks. Are you at all, or is the administration, the president, all concerned that this is maybe impacting the public's understanding of these tariffs? It might be messing with the message on it?
No, look, these are obviously two individuals who have very different views on trade and on tariffs. Boys will be boys.
Meanwhile, the economy is being compared to the brutal Red Wedding from Game of Thrones. Ruthless, bloody, and without an end in sight. This is the moment the American people need accountability, not entertainment through clever rhetoric. Caroline Leavitt confidently declared,
There's not going to be any pain for American-owned companies and American workers because their jobs are going to come back home.
But the reality is the economic pain is about to hit just before midnight. 9 hours before the new tariffs are applied to China, agricultural states like Iowa, which exported $13.5 billion worth of produce in 2023, are worried about skyrocketing prices for fertilizers, equipment, and machinery.
Already seeing it. Our soybean market, the cattle market, I'm more worried about what it's going to do for some of the other stuff that we will purchase throughout the year, whether that's equipment parts, chemicals in the future, fertilizer prices, how it's going to impact things.
The consequences are not just for farmers. Prices are increasing, supply chains are disrupted, production costs are rising, pushing food prices up. And in the end, it's the consumers who bear the cost. The so-called no pain is, in fact, the pain being ignored. Jobs will come back. America doesn't need other countries as much as they need us. Sound familiar? It's like saying cutting your hair will make you taller. Not true in essence, but repeated to cover up the reality.
Deals will only be made if they benefit American workers and address our nation's crippling trade deficits. America does not need other countries as much as other countries need us.
Yet, production numbers, job reports, and consumption data don't support this. Jobs did not come back. And in fact, many American companies have opted to move factories to India, Mexico, and avoid the tariffs. According to Moody's Analytics, more than 300,000 potential jobs were lost due to the impact of the trade war. Trump repeatedly emphasized that prices would drop immediately once his policies were implemented. While the phrase "prices will come down on day one" did not appear as a complete statement, it reflects the recurring theme in his speeches. Everything would improve very quickly, and people would become richer.
It'll all happen very quickly. This will rapidly drive prices down, lower interest rates, and put more money into the pockets of American consumers. It'll also bring your grocery bill.
But the reality is, after the Trump administration announced new tariffs, global stock markets went into a shock. According to El País, market capitalization dropped by more than $10 trillion, equivalent to over half of the European Union's GDP. Previously, Trump claimed that egg prices had dropped by 79%, but in reality, this was not entirely true. According to PolitiFact, egg prices did decrease significantly after reaching a peak, but the drop did not reach the 79% figure claimed. People don't live by promises. They live by the actual costs every time they go to the supermarket. One of the most controversial aspects of Trump's tariff policy is the formula used to calculate tariffs. This has not only left economists scratching their heads, but even Trump's supporting billionaires cannot make sense of it. One of Trump's major donors, Ken Langone, founder of Home Depot, publicly criticized this formula, calling it completely irrational.
I don't understand the goddamn formula. I believe he's been poorly advised by his advisors in this trade situation and the formula they're applying.
The formula was described as exports minus imports, divided by imports, which has no clear relationship with how tariffs should actually be calculated. John Oliver used a humorous analogy to criticize the formula.
tariffs. It'd be like trying to figure out the square footage of your home by dividing your phone number by your dog's age, or taking your temperature by measuring your head's distance to the sun. It's not going to get you the answer that you're looking for.
This is how the Trump administration used to calculate the tariffs countries should pay. This confusion is not just laughable. It's costing hundreds of billions of dollars.
90-day pause for the people that didn't retaliate, because I told them if you retaliate, we're going to double it. And that's what I did with China, because they did retaliate.
In the meantime, there will be a 90-day pause on the reciprocal tariffs as these negotiations are ongoing.
In the midst of the crisis, Donald Trump does a 180-degree turn, from declaring no tariff delay to a 90-day postponement. So the question is he really solving the problem or simply in a state of panic? In the past, Trump proudly declared there would be no tariff delay. Now, in a whirling 180-degree turn, he announces a 90-day delay on tariffs. This sudden change has many asking, is he in a state of panic as he watches the economy slowly collapse? The whole world is watching one of Trump's decisions that's like setting a fire and trying to put it out at the same time. Previously, he said, if we delay the tariffs, it will be panic, and America doesn't need to panic. Yet, just days later, Trump contradicts himself and postpones the tariffs to try to save the economy. This begs the question, is this decision just panic after seeing the bond market plunge? No one knows for sure, but clearly this swift change has left the public stunned.
Excuse me, Raquel, if I could just add to what the Secretary said. Many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here. You tried to say that the rest of the world would be moved closer to China when in fact we've seen the opposite effect.
The European Union, a major opponent, once fiercely opposed Trump, but now they're accepting his zero tariff for zero tariff proposal. Surely they never expected they'd be bowing to Trump. While Trump had previously declared tariffs on most countries, the European Union, EU, initially stood firm, warning of an economic disaster. Yet, just a few days later, the EU had to turn around, accepting Trump's offer in the hope of saving their economy. This isn't just a major defeat for the EU, it's a swift turn round that has the whole world questioning the EU's tariff strategy.
A tremendous amount of spirit from other countries, including China. China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how quite to go about it. You know, it's one of those things they don't know how quite. They're proud people.
The rest of the world would be moved closer to China when in fact we've seen the opposite effect. The entire world is calling the United States of America, not China, because they need our markets, they need our consumers, and they need this president in the Oval Office to talk to them.
And as for China, they won't back down. While the EU rushed back to the negotiating table, China stands firm against Trump's 125% tariff hike. China is not the EU. When Trump imposed a 125% tariff on Chinese goods, Beijing showed no hesitation. They continued to assert that they would not be bullied by Trump's demands and vowed not to give in. China's resilience seems to have put Trump in a position where he can't negotiate the same way he did with the EU. While Trump claims he wants a deal, China stands its ground, refusing to budge. The bitter result is that goods imported from countries like Brazil, Indonesia, and Vietnam are starting to skyrocket in price, forcing the American people to bear the consequences. As countries like Brazil, Indonesia, and Vietnam raise their prices to cope with U.S. tariffs, it's the American citizens who are feeling the impact. Familiar imports like fruits, seafood, and coffee have already started to climb in price. U.S. consumers are feeling the sting of these price hikes, especially as financial markets continue to plummet. At the same time, Americans' retirement investments are also taking a massive hit. Despite efforts to put out the fire he started, Trump still hasn't managed to pull the U.S. economy out of crisis. With his whirling decisions and the lack of consistency in his tariff policies, he's turned the trade war into a joke, leaving no one clear on the madness and danger of it all. Is the U.S. economy truly on the brink of collapse? With the decision to impose a 104% tariff on China, Trump has caused the stock market to plummet, wiping out trillions of dollars. And while everything is in chaos, he holds a chaotic press conference, continuing to attack countries like Germany and Canada. Can America recover from this shock? Liberation through controversial policies. On a crucial day, Trump made a shocking decision. imposing a 104% tariff on China. This decision immediately sparked negative reactions from the financial markets. With a severe collapse in stock indices, the market had started to show signs of recovery after the previous crisis. But it quickly lost momentum, plummeting, causing trillions of dollars to vanish in a short time. These are clear signs that the U.S. economy is standing on the brink of recession. As the economy faces the threat of collapse, Trump holds a chaotic press conference. In it, he not only discusses tax policies, but also strongly criticizes other nations, notably Germany. Trump claims that Germany has gone too far with renewable energy policies.
Germany went green, very green. They went so green they almost went out of business. Germany was finished. They went to wind. The wind wasn't blowing too much.
Trump declares. However, it is his own decisions that are pushing the U.S. economy into crisis as economic indicators begin to plummet and investor confidence weakens. These remarks aren't just unsettling the economy. They're causing America to lose its global influence, especially in issues of sustainable development and renewable energy. Trump didn't just attack China. He also turned his focus to Canada, accusing the country of being a drug den killing Americans. However, these accusations were completely baseless. With no evidence to support them, Trump claimed Canada will pay for what they've done, but provided nothing to back up these claims. He continued to blame Canada for fentanyl trafficking without offering any concrete proof. Just vague thoughts from his own mind. These unfounded words didn't just escalate tensions between the US and Canada. They also made America's other allies feel uneasy and isolated as these baseless statements grow more frequent. The lack of transparency and the doubts about Trump's leadership have become a major concern on the world stage. The instability in Trump's remarks has made international diplomacy more tense than ever, undermining relationships between the U.S. and other countries. These decisions have only increased the concerns about Trump's unstable policies, as no nation can predict his next move in foreign policy. Immediately, Canada's response was swift and strong. Prime Minister Mark Carney declared,
I will reject all attempts to weaken Canada, all attempts to wear us down, to break us down, so that America can own us.
These words make it clear that the relationship between the two nations is seriously fractured. And this fracture isn't just affecting bilateral ties, it's impacting America's global policies. Even Doug Ford, a former Trump supporter, has vigorously criticized his policies. It's unfortunate for the American people, but the fault lies entirely with Trump, said Doug Ford. Countries across Europe and Asia quickly turned their backs on the US, strengthening ties with major rivals like China. Countries that were once close allies are now looking to reduce their dependence on the US and shifting their focus to new global partnerships. Trump's tariff policies haven't just isolated America. They've also weakened the US's influence on the global stage. Once close friends, now Trump is abandoned by his allies, and even former partners are blocking him due to his reckless policies. Nations that once were strategic partners of the US are now seeking to minimize their reliance on America and shifting cooperation toward other countries, including China. This highlights a significant decline in America's influence in an increasingly multipolar world where nations now have options and are shifting their global cooperation strategies. In the midst of the US economy facing serious struggles from high inflation to soaring gas prices and rising unemployment, Trump decided to raise global tariffs. Imposing high tariffs on other nations not only worsens the economic situation, it also alienates many international partners, countries that are looking to maintain effective trade relations with the US. Instead of addressing urgent issues like tax reform, lowering gas prices, or supporting workers, Trump chooses the trade war strategy as a way to distract public attention from America's internal problems. These decisions have not only plunged the US economy into further decline, but have also created global instability, as nations begin to shield themselves from the negative impact of America's tariff policies. The Make America Great Again slogan has now become, Make Recession Real Fast. Trump's policies are not only sending the US economy into a downward spiral, but also creating chaos worldwide. As countries scramble to protect their own interests from America's unilateral moves, Ontario Premier threatens to cut off electricity to the U.S. If trade war escalates, could the U.S. face a widespread power outage? Ontario, a major electricity supplier to the U.S., is threatening to cut off supply if tariffs continue to escalate. Today, the Ontario Premier announced that he would not hesitate to halt electricity exports to the U.S. if Washington continues imposing tariffs on Canadian goods. Is this a strong countermeasure or a risky move for both sides? Ontario strikes back. 25% tariff on electricity exports. This is no longer a warning, it's a reality. Ontario Premier Doug Ford has officially imposed a 25% tariff on electricity exports to the US. This means $400,000 per day. The additional amount that American businesses and households will have to pay, $100 per month. The average increase in electricity bills for households relying on Ontario's power supply. Who will be hit the hardest? 1.5 million American homes and businesses that depend on Ontario's electricity. Minnesota, Michigan, and New York will be the most affected states as they rely heavily on Canadian power. But this is just the beginning. Doug Ford has made it clear. If the U.S. continues imposing tariffs, we are ready to cut off electricity entirely. A dangerous scenario. Factories could shut down, leading to mass layoffs. The U.S. power grid could face severe disruptions, causing electricity prices to surge. Industries in Minnesota, Michigan, and New York could grind to a halt. This is no longer just a trade dispute. It could escalate into a full-blown energy crisis. Canada strikes back. Holding firm on tariffs against the U.S. electricity is not the only weapon Canada is using to retaliate. The Canadian government is maintaining a 25% tariff on multiple U.S. imports. What is Canada's objective? To force the U.S. to roll back tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, and other exports. The affected goods include beer. American beer companies could lose millions due to rising costs. Vegetables. U.S. food exports to Canada will become more expensive, affecting both economies. Footwear and cosmetics. American retailers may suffer major losses due to higher import costs, but can Canada truly achieve its goal? Mark Carney. We will not lift these tariffs until the U.S. shows respect for Canada. The big question, will the U.S. back down? If the U.S. imposes even harsher tariffs on Canadian goods, what will happen next? Can the Canadian government maintain its firm stance in this trade war? And if tensions keep escalating, which side will suffer the most? But this is far from over. The US is not just facing tariffs from Canada, but also from China and the European Union. This trade war could drive up the cost of goods in both countries, hurting consumers on both sides. If the US does not adjust its policies, could this trade dispute turn into a full-scale economic crisis? Canada's upcoming election, a showdown with the US. But this isn't just about trade, it's also a major political issue. In May, Canada will hold a general election, and Mark Carney is expected to become the new Prime Minister. If that happens, tensions between Canada and the US will escalate even further. Mark Carney's strong commitments. Continue imposing retaliatory tariffs on the US, protect Canada's economy from American protectionist policies. Push for an independent trade strategy, reducing reliance on the US. But is Canada strong enough to confront the US? Let's not forget, Canada supplies over 4.3 million barrels of oil per day to the US. 50% of high-grade nickel used in US defense and aerospace industries comes from Canada. 60% of US aluminum is imported, and much of it comes from Canada. If tensions continue to rise, what could happen? The US might impose higher tariffs, driving up costs across industries. Canada could retaliate by restricting exports of key resources. Is it time to negotiate a resolution, or will the US and Canada continue down the path of economic conflict? If you want to understand more about this situation, stay tuned for the next update. Once a powerful symbol of the MAGA movement, Donald Trump and his allies are now facing a wave of backlash across the United States, and even in Canada. From Texas, a Republican stronghold, to Toronto, where a crowd erupted in boos during the U.S. national anthem. The anger is growing. Have people turned their backs on Trump, or is this just a temporary reaction? In Texas, where Trump previously won by a landslide, something unusual happened. At a town hall meeting for Congressman Keith Self, a loyal MAGA member, the crowd erupted in boos and furious protests. As a Republican representative in Texas' 3rd Congressional District, where Trump holds a plus 30-point advantage over Democrats, Keith Self was expected to receive strong support. Instead, he was attacked by his own voters at the event. The crowd chanted, "Do your job, do your job," expressing their deep frustration with MAGA policies. This raises a crucial question. If even Trump's most loyal supporters are turning against him, can he maintain his political stronghold? It's not just Americans. Canadians are furious too. At a WWE event in Toronto, as the US national anthem played, the crowd erupted. Why? Because of Trump's aggressive policies against Canada, threatening to annex Canada, a shocking and unacceptable idea, imposing steep tariffs on Canadian goods, severely damaging the country's economy. Canadians have started boycotting American products and limiting travel to the US as a way to protest Trump's administration. This marks a serious breakdown in US-Canada relations, once considered one of the strongest alliances in the world. If Trump continues down this path, not only Canada, but the entire world may turn against him. While protests against Trump grow louder, America is facing an economic and social crisis. But what is Trump doing? Not holding emergency meetings, not implementing solutions. Instead, he's playing golf. Images of Trump relaxing on the golf course while America struggles have sparked widespread public outrage. Living costs are skyrocketing. Inflation continues to burden the middle class and working Americans. Protests against budget cuts are erupting across the country. Yet Trump remains detached from reality, as if nothing is happening. Is this how a leader should act during a national crisis? While everyday Americans struggle, Trump's new budget plan delivers massive tax cuts to the wealthy, while slashing essential services for the most vulnerable. Medicaid cuts. Trump slashes $880 billion from Medicaid, leaving millions without medical care. Hospitals in rural areas may shut down. Prescription drug prices will soar. Elderly, disabled, and low-income families suffer the most. Education crisis. A $400 billion cut to public schools and student aid means fewer teachers, larger class sizes, higher tuition, making college unaffordable. Special education and low-income schools lose critical funding. Farmers struggle. Food prices rise. With $300 billion in cuts to farm assistance, small farms face bankruptcy. Food shortages and higher grocery prices. Big corporations take over agriculture. Billionaires get richer. While Americans suffer, Trump's plan delivers trillions in tax breaks to the ultra-wealthy. The top 1% saves billions. Corporations get richer while worker wages stay low. Fewer regulations mean more corporate greed and pollution. Who really wins? Not workers, students, farmers, or seniors, but the wealthy elite. Trump sells this budget as economic reform, but in reality, it's a direct attack on the middle and working class. How much longer will Americans keep paying the price? Donald Trump's press conference with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer quickly turned into a disaster. Trump forgot his own statements, praised Russia, dodged responsibility for tariffs causing economic crises, and defended controversial figures like Andrew Tate. Is this cognitive decline or a calculated strategy? At the very start of the press conference, Trump was questioned about his previous claim that Zelensky was a dictator. His response, "Did I say that? I can't believe it." But the truth is undeniable. Trump had publicly stated this multiple times, echoing Russia's propaganda against Ukraine. Similarly, when confronted about his statement that the European Union was created to screw the United States, he denied ever saying it, despite making that claim just 24 hours earlier. Was this a serious memory lapse, or was Trump deliberately manipulating reality? If he can't even remember his own words, how can he be trusted to lead a country? Trump often claims to be a strong defender of allies, but when asked whether the UK could stand alone against Russia, he mocked Prime Minister Starmer. "Oh, so you want to go to war with Russia?" This was not just irresponsible, but a deliberate provocation rather than a diplomatic response. When pressed on whether the US would assist the UK if Russia attacked, Trump dodged the question, saying, "The British don't need much help." But history has shown that the US and the UK have always stood together in major conflicts. Trump's comments suggest that he is weakening NATO, sending a dangerous message to Russia that the US may not defend its allies if he returns to power. So, if Trump is re-elected, will NATO survive? Or will he abandon allies, leaving Europe vulnerable to Russian aggression? Despite Russia continuing to bomb Ukraine and commit war crimes, Trump praised Moscow. I think Russia has been acting very well. A sitting US president applauding a nation committing the largest European invasion since World War II. Worse yet, when asked whether Putin might break any agreement on Ukraine, Trump defended him again. I think he will keep his word. I've known him for a long time. The question is Trump the President of the United States or a spokesperson for the Kremlin? No Western leader has ever trusted Putin this blindly. While the world condemns Russia, Trump is the only one excusing Putin's actions. If Trump returns to power, will the US continue supporting Ukraine? Or will he hand Putin the victory he's been waiting for? Another shocking moment. Trump was asked about Andrew Tate, the accused human trafficker and sex offender in Romania. A journalist questioned, "Did your administration pressure Romania to release Andrew Tate?" Trump quickly denied knowing anything about it. "I don't know about that." But reports suggest that Trump lobbied to bring Tate back to the US. Andrew Tate is not just a controversial influencer, but someone who openly promotes far-right ideologies and has influence over millions of young men online. So why is Trump defending a criminal instead of prioritizing national interests? Is he building alliances with extremists to strengthen his own political power? Trump repeated one of his most misleading economic claims. Tariffs don't affect Americans, other countries pay for them. But the reality? American businesses pay tariffs, not foreign governments. When import costs rise, consumer prices go up, putting financial strain on American families. Trump's tariffs led to billions in losses during his trade war with China. Despite overwhelming evidence, Trump refused to take responsibility, shifting blame onto foreign nations. His economic policies have already hurt American industries. How much worse will it get if he is re-elected? Increase taxes to save the economy, but end up crashing the economy first. It seems a bit counterintuitive, but welcome to the tariff-based economic plan in the roulette-style version. Donald Trump is gearing up for a big play. Not launching memes, not creating a new social media platform, but imposing a 20% global tariff on all imports. A number that sends shockwaves through the market and makes economists sit up straight in the middle of the night. This isn't the usual America First approach. This is the Smoot-Hawley 2.0 version, a policy that helped plunge the U.S. into the Great Depression of the 1930s. Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's Analytics, describes this plan with a phrase that hits like a sledgehammer.
Oh, geez. There's no good case here, Kate. It's just dark variations on a dark theme. I mean,
if implemented immediately, as the White House suggests, good luck to investors because the financial markets have reacted even before the order was signed. Dow Jones, S&P 500, NASDAQ, all plummeting like cars with no brakes. Zandi makes a simple calculation
of what that might mean. The current unemployment rate today is 4%. In that scenario, you get unemployment that's north of 7%. So that would be a pretty significant recession.
This isn't a slight increase. It's a three-step leap into economic recession, meaning if you're going to work, hold on to that job, or at least keep the number for the local employment center handy. And the funny yet painful thing is, even if they just apply the milder version, country-specific tariffs, the average tariff would still hit 15%, enough to pull the economy to the brink of recession. Common thinking, increase taxes, increase budget revenue. But according to Zandi, if the U.S. actually imposes a 20% tariff, the economy will recession before the government collects a single dollar. Why? Import tariffs rise, but unemployment also rises. People lose jobs, income drops, spending drops, businesses lose. Income tax and corporate tax revenues fall. Meanwhile, spending on unemployment benefits, SNAP, housing subsidies, and farmers impacted by China's retaliation skyrockets. Zandi makes it clear.
Tariff revenue, but think about the hit to other taxes. Income taxes will be down, corporate income tax will be down, sales taxes will be down. And also it raises government spending with higher unemployment. That causes unemployment insurance costs to rise, SNAP, which is food assistance, rental assistance.
It's not just the U.S. that is in panic. Top trade partners are also scrambling. Mexico, the country with the closest trade relationship with the U.S., has sent negotiating delegations to Washington nearly every week. Former Deputy Foreign Minister of Mexico, Julian Ventura, warns.
As a whole, we know that tariffs have an impact on consumer state of mind, on markets, on investors. So there's definitely going to be a hit.
The U.S.-Mexico supply chain alone supports 14 million jobs in the North American region. If this system collapses, the shock won't stop at the factories but will ripple through the labor market, consumer spending, and investment. Canada is also not sitting idle. Ottawa has activated its emergency response plan, marking one of the rare occasions in decades where the U.S.-Canada alliance is under such high-level tension. After the announcement called Liberation Day, the day America was freed from trade barriers, Wall Street had a rather negative celebration. Stocks dropped, investors ran for the exits, and economists collectively warned that this was the resurrection of Smoot-Hawley, the 1930 tariff policy that helped drive America into the depths of the Great Depression. A tax policy that could destroy millions of jobs. A decision that could send Wall Street plummeting. A statement that could bring America closer to recession than ever before. The only question left, are we moving toward sustainable growth or sliding down the slope of an old-fashioned crisis, just in a new suit?